Good evening. We're going to call town meeting to order here, the May 8th, 2023 for the town of Halifax into session. As the moderator, my name is Bert Gaynor. We do have a quorum, so we can get going. I'll ask the town clerk to call the meeting to order. I thought you were reading something. We're good? We'll do the instructions. I'll do the instructions first. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all stand, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, what I'd like to do, well, we'll start with the instructions. It's the same as we've always done in town. People have a question, want to make a comment, want to discuss any of the articles, if you could please raise your hand. I'll call on you, come up to the microphone, or we have two nice young ladies who have microphones that can provide them with you. Please give your, as we always have done, give your name and address, for the record so we know who's talking. Oh, by the way, everybody got their red cards and their green cards? We all good? That's how we're going to vote? Awesome. Makes it easier for the town moderator. Okay, let's do a couple of introductions first. I'd like to start off with our two brand new selectmen. We have Mr. Nasrallah in the end, Najee Nasrallah, and reintroduce John Bruno as newly elected. Also, we have our new town administrator, Mr. Corey Haddad. Also like to introduce our new Halifax Fire Chief, Chief Michael Whittam. There he is, he's in the back. And of course, we have on stage our representative of town council and the town clerk, as well as the town administrator. Our finance committee is over here to my right, and that's about it. Okay. Just so everybody knows, what we do here in town is we follow the rules governing town meeting according to the town meeting times, a handbook for parliamentary law. We'll determine the quorum of the vote by the green cards for those articles that we just need a majority. Your green card for yes, and hold up the red card for no. I'll ask that as we go. And again, if there's the same procedures as before, if there's any need to discuss anything, raise your hand. We'll call on you. If you have a question, you'll ask it through the moderator, and I will find out an answer for you, either finding the person that can provide the answer or whatever. We'll go from there. Oh yeah, one other thing, I'd like to be able to make it nice and easy if you could follow along in your handbooks with how we go through the articles. If you could read along with us, I'll give you a page number and whatnot, and just so we're all on the same page. You'll notice too, article number 17. We're going to hold that till the very end. The reason we're doing that is we're going to see how the rest of the funds go, and if we have funds available, if there are even funds available, we'll vote on Article 17 at the very end, at last. And you still get to vote whether you want it yes or no, but there's really no sense of voting on it if we don't have the money for it. It's basically that simple. So we're going to save Article 17 to the very end. Any questions or anything with that? Any problems? Did I miss anything else? Do we need to cover anything? I'm sorry? We did.
The scrivener's error on page the warrant. That error, the mistake.
Oh, yeah.
It should be right in your first sheet.
Oh, yeah, one of the, there's a mistake on one of the articles they want me to bring to your attention.
Sure. That'll be good.
Yeah, sure, that'll be fine. Appreciate it.
If everybody could turn to page 18 of the warrant, on item A, there was a Scribner's error. It says from solid waste retained earnings. This should state from solid waste revenue. It doesn't change anything. It was simply just a Scribner's error.
Everybody see that on 18?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
woman's having trouble hearing.
Okay, good one. Yeah, thanks, Dave. I was supposed to do that. Thanks for the reminder. There's 5 seats right up here out front. If you want to come down to the front and get a little closer to the speakers and whatnot, we have provided 5 chairs down here for hearing.
She's saying it's an echo.
The echo?
We're working on it.
Am I echoing? You turn maybe the bass down a little? We're working on it. Better? How's that?
The closed captioning on both TVs.
Oh, sure. And also, we do have closed captioning on both of the monitors up here in the front, or if that helps out. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right. We ready?
Good evening. The warrant articles we are about to discuss have been signed by our select board and were posted in 5 locations by our constable, Thomas Hammond, on April 12, 2023. I move that this meeting dispense with the reading of the constable's return of service of that warrant. I further move that the moderator not be required to read the warrant articles verbatim, but be allowed to refer to the articles by number and by subject matter.
We need to take a vote on that. Do we have a second on the motion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Everybody understands what we're going to do? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Hold up your green card, please. And all those opposed, please hold up your red card. The motion passes. All right, and of course, again, as we've done in the past, we're going to do the lottery system. Mrs. Lawless will be pulling the numbers for the articles as they appear. Oh, that's right. We do have to do Articles 1 through 4. We're going to do the budget things first. Is that still the base too high? We good? Irma, are you good? Did we?
Can't fix that. It's a room.
All right.
It's a big room.
Okay, let's turn to page 8, please, Article 1. Mr. Bruno?
I would move the town vote Article 1 is presented in the warrant.
Can't hear his at all.
I move the town vote Article 1 as presented in the warrant. Second.
We have a motion and a second for Article 1 as it appears on page 8 of our warrant book handout. Any questions or discussions? Seeing no indication of discussion, we'll vote on this. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimously.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
so Article 1 allows town departments to make reports. I'd like to make a brief report in conjunction with Article 1.
Okay.
So, to the town meeting, the board that sits before you tonight was not the board that sat here a year ago. We had a tumultuous year on the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to compliment, though, the strong leadership of Selectman Seelig, who was voted last spring at the very beginning of some of our difficulties, ably assisted by our town accountant, who took double duty as not only the town accountant, but also as the interim town administrator, Mrs. Nolan. They really did a wonderful job for us to keep the train running in the right direction. Since November's election, this board has tried to do as much as we could to bring some stability to the office, I think we've made some success there. There are a lot of problems that needed to be addressed. We've been addressing them as quickly as we can. We do have a lot of work to do, so hopefully in a year from now, we will have a little bit better program for everyone. We're doing the best we can now. As the town moderator mentioned, we are happy that we've been able to make some appointments, one of which being the fire chief, Chief Witham, who has been with us since last summer, doing a wonderful job, and also a town administrator, Mr. Haddad, who sits behind us, who also has been doing a wonderful job, although he's only been here since January. You'll probably hear from both of them tonight. If you haven't met them yet, at a break, get an opportunity to say hello and welcome them to town. That concludes our report, Mr. Moderator.
Great. Thank you, sir. And I did also neglect to ask the recommendation from the Finance Committee. You were supposed to throw something at me, Todd. You were supposed to throw something. But, okay, but Article 1 does pass. We'll move on to Article 2 on page 8. Mr. Seeley? would you like to speak to
Moderator.
that? Yes, sir.
I move that the town vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaw as presented in Article 2 of the warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on Article 2. Anybody like to speak to that? or-
I will.
Yes, sir.
So these are the proposed to the Wage and Personnel Committee as immediate outliers in terms of being undercompensated. These specific positions the town has had extreme difficulty recruiting for. The town is conducting a compensation and classification study which will be acted upon at a future town meeting to review all other positions.
Okay, open up to any questions or discussions.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, I'm sorry. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, and the Selectman recommends also?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, I'll open up. Any questions, any comments? Seeing no indication as such, all those in favor of Article 2 as presented in the handbook, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimous. We move on to Article 3. Todd, if you would, please. We're now on page 9 of our handout.
I move that the town vote to set the salaries of several elected town officers for July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, as printed in the warrant.
Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen. Recommendation.
Yeah, we do recommend.
Would you like to speak to that, Todd, please? Do I have a motion?
All salaries except the town clerk are the same as fiscal year 2023, as an across-the-board increase has not yet been determined. The town clerk's salary increase reflects the adjustment to 40 hours per week rather than the 32 hours that is currently being compensated for. As a result of the increased state requirements and expanded duties of the town clerk's office, this is necessary to maintain operations within the department.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. We'll vote on Article 3 as presented on page 9 in the handbook. All those in favor, please hold up a green card. All those opposed, please hold up a red card. Article 3 passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move right on to Article 4, again on page 9, the operating budget. Yes, sir.
I move that the town approve Article 4 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Article 4. I think the best way to do this, oh, yes, you, please.
Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Board of Selectmen?
We recommend.
Recommend.
Okay, what I think is the best way to do this was we've done in the past. I'll go by sections. You'll see, we'll start up on page 10. Okay, the very first general government. You'll see it at the very top. I'm not going to read every single one, but I'm going to go, if somebody has a question or would like to discuss it, if you could just raise your hand, yell hold, give me the line number, and then we'll go back and discuss it once we get through that whole section. Okay, first section, general government. Lines 1 through 46 on pages 10 and 11. We all good? Hold. What number, please? I'm sorry, if someone could go over 3 and 5? 3 and 12. Okay, could you rise to your question, please? Come to the mic. And your name and address, please.
Mary Gravenese, 98 Clyde Bosworth Road. I'm just questioning why, as great a job as he's doing, the town administrator just started less than 4 months ago, and he's getting an $11,000 increase. And also just an explanation for the town accountant's increase of $17,000.
I'll try to find the answer to that.
I can answer those. So as far as the town administrator, that's a contracted position, like the police chief and the fire chief and the town administrator. They have contracts that have their wage scale set out. It doesn't go through wage and personnel. It's separately done. As far as the town accountant, that there's no increase in that. My understanding is that we are using that we have some money set aside for future hiring, as our present town accountant is in the process of retiring by the end of the year.
And number 12, line 12.
Oh, I did both. That was, I
Both
did
together.
both.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, there's a motion. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to hold another line,
Sure.
or I can just ask the question. On line item 22, we just voted for that in Article 3 to be $74,502, and here it's $75,502?
Let me see if I can find out for you. Mrs. Knoll, please.
So our treasurer collector is a certified collector. Because of that certified status, she gets a $1,000 addition stipend added to her wages. So the wages or the salary is the $74,502. The extra $1,000 is added in the line item for the stipend.
All said, Mrs. Niffen? All right, great. All right, seeing no indication of further discussion, there's a motion on the floor in a second. For the total now, if you read down to the bottom right below, line 46, the total is going to be for $1,770,378. Forgot to point that out. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of the first general government section, hold up your green cards in favor. All those opposed, please hold up your red cards. The first section passes. Okay, now let's move on to the second section, which would be public safety/police at the very bottom of page 11. Starts out on line 47 and goes through 253 for a total of $1,848,412. Do I have a motion to accept that section before we discuss it? And a second?
Second.
Here we have a motion and a second to accept lines 47 through 53. Can we get the Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
And the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, we recommend.
Would anybody like to speak to that? That section?
I said yes, yes.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Seeing no indication of discussion, There's a motion and a second to accept the figures as shown on page 11, lines 47 through 53. All those in favor, please hold up the green card. All those opposed, please hold up your red card. Passes unanimously for that section. Right, let's move right on. Public safety fire. This will be lines 54 through 62, and the total dollar amount on the far right-hand column at the end of that section, below, right below 62, is $1,573,156. Anybody like to speak to that, Finance Committee? Are you in favor of it?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen?
We recommend.
Okay, do I have a motion in a second?
Yes,
We're all good with? Okay, any questions, comments? Seeing no indication of any further discussion, we'll be voting on lines 54 through 62 for the total of $1,573,156. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Passes unanimously, that section. Public safety, other public safety, lines 63 through 70 for a total of $125,256. Do I have a motion to accept that section as presented in the handout?
Yes, so moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Finance Committee recommendation,
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we recommend.
Anybody care to speak to these lines? We're good. We have a motion and a second. Voting on lines 63 through 70 with a total of $125,256. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Section passes unanimously. Dispatch services, line 71 on page 13, that's where we are, for a total, far right-hand corner, $200,000. Do I have a motion to accept that line as presented in the handbook?
Yes.
Do I have a second? A motion and a second, Finance Committee's recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, any discussion, comments? Seeing no indication as such, we'll vote on line 71 for $200,000. All those in favor, please hold up your green cards. All those opposed, please your red cards. Passes unanimous. Okay, schools. Again, page 13, lines 72 through 77. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the line for a total of $14,903, 14 million, don't we wish it was 14,000, $14,903,647.
Yes, so moved.
We have a move, do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any questions, any discussion? Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen?
Yes, we recommend.
Okay, seeing no indication of any discussion, voting on lines 72 through 77 for a total of $14,903,647. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimous. Public Works, Highway. We're looking at lines 78 through 89 on page 13, and we're looking at 90 through 91 on page 14, for a total of $958,693. Do I have a motion to accept as presented? And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen?
Yes, we recommend.
Would anybody like to speak to that? Okay, any comments or questions? Seeing no indication as such, We'll vote on lines 78 through 91 for a total of $958,693. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Passes unanimous. Public Works, Water, page 14, lines 95 through 105.
Mr. Moderator, I think you skipped line item 92, cemetery. Unless we're not going to bury anybody this year, I don't know.
My mistake. Public Works Cemetery, good catch, whoever that was. Lines 92, 93, and 94. Total cemetery, $87,726. Move. And the second? Second. Finance Committee's recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
Oh, yeah.
Any discussion, any comments? Any questions? Seeing none. There's a motion and a second to accept lines 92 through 94 for the Public Works Cemetery for a total of $87,726. Please raise your green cards for all those in favor. Please raise your red cards if you're opposed. Passes unanimous. Okay, now let's go to Public Works for the Water Department. Lines 95 on page 14, lines 95 through 105.
So moved.
We have a motion to accept. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, any questions? Seeing none, we'll vote on lines 95 through 105 for a total of $848,509. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimous. Public Works, Solid Waste Management. We're on page 15 now. Lines 106 through 111 for a total of $551,749. Do I have a motion?
Yes. So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Finance Committee's recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Any discussion, any questions, any lines? Seeing none, we'll vote on lines 106 through 111 for a total of $551,749. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimous. Okay, just to double check, Mrs. Nolan, we good at the $2,446,677 at this point? Right, total public works. Okay, just want to make sure I didn't skip anything out. Okay, we're good. All right, let's move on to Health and Human Services. We're on page 15. We're going to go through lines 112 through 126. 126 is on page 16 for a total of $575,512.
Yes, so moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. I'll ask for the Finance Committee's recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
And the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we recommend.
Any questions, comments, any of the lines that you need clarification on? Seeing no indication as such, all those in favor of lines 112 through 126 for the Health and Human Services, please raise your green card. And all those against, please raise your red card. Passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to Culture and Human Services. Again, we're on page 16. Lines 127 through 144. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have, and a second? I have a motion and a second. Could I ask for the Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, any questions, comments regarding the Cultural and Recreation? Seeing no indication as such, we'll vote on lines 127 through 144 for a total of $614,091. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Passes unanimously. Debt service. Starts on page 16. We are at line 145, and that will end at line 150, for a total of $484,980. Do I have a motion? So
Yes,
moved.
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Can I ask the Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, any comments? Yes, Mrs. Niffen. Please.
I just actually have another question.
Just state your name, please, and your
Oh,
address.
Candace Niffen from Harvard Street. It looks like we've finished paying off the debt for the landfill, but I noticed that is it not capped anymore? I noticed that the hill is getting high again, and I just heard that it's due to go up another 80 feet. I thought we were done with that.
See if I can find out. Mrs. Nolan?
So the debt we had for the landfill was for the Hemlock Street landfill, the one down by the town barn. The other landfill was the BFI landfill, and that was not a town-owned landfill.
Yes, Mrs. Niffen, follow up?
Since I appreciate knowing that. I didn't know that. But since we're talking about the landfill, is the BFI one now reopened?
I didn't get the question.
Is the BFI landfill reopened and going up another 80-plus feet?
Mr. Moderator, if
Yes,
we're
sir.
talking about the landfill up by the industrial park,
Yes.
it is being run, I'm not sure exactly what the details are, but it is being run by, I think it's called Maryland Development. But I don't think this line item 147 has anything to do with that. I think line item 147 deals just with the Hemlock Street capping, which I think is concluded now.
Right, I was just wondering with a follow-up question, if I could just ask if that other one is reopened or if it's capped still.
I didn't quite catch that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, the landfill is open, but it's not taking solid waste. They take soil. If you have any further questions, you can contact the Board of Selectmen office and the Board of Health, and we can more than provide more detail tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haddad. Is that good? Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll ask for a vote on the debt service lines 145 through 150 for a total of $484,980. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to fixed costs. Page 17, we're at line 151 through 158 for a total of $3,571,804. Finance Committee's recommendation, please.
Finance Committee recommends.
We move the motion.
Yes, we need a motion.
Yes, so moved.
So moved. In a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Anyone like to speak to it? Seeing no indication as such, we'll vote on lines 151 through 158 for $3,571,804. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimously. Okay, now we're over on page 18. This is where the correction was made, they spoke of earlier on that line, line A. This is the funding notes. Oh, so we're all set there, we're all done. We're all good.
No, that concludes the article. Page 18 are funding notes. If you look at during the wage and personnel, or during this budget article, there are notes on the far right-hand side, A, B, C, D, and then separate funding for certain things. That's
That's what the case is. Everybody follow along with that? That's where the notation was we went through that. This is the explanation of where the money was coming from, me to. Awesome. Move from that. Good. So now we'll do a lottery for Articles 5 to the end and go from there.
Article 7.
Article 7, we're on page 20. Mr. Bruno.
I move the town vote to appropriate $3 million to pay costs of water treatment plant upgrades, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 8, in parentheses 4, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. The amount authorized to be borrowed shall be reduced to the extent of any grants, gifts, or other funds received by the town to be used to pay the cost of this project.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll open it up for any questions on Article 7. Any comments?
Finance.
I'm sorry, Finance Committee's recommendation. Told you to watch me. You gotta-
Finance Committee recommends.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
So I'd like to ask the Water Superintendent, Mr. Lindsay, to explain what this is all about.
This is for the upgrades to the filter plant and the YCAM treatment center. It's been in the works for, I guess, 4 or 5 years now, and COVID set it back. It's mostly to do with the chlorine residual from the treatment lagoons going out into the swamp, and we have to upgrade all of the original equipment. Everything's 40 years old now, and we already have some money set aside. There's probably like $800,000 set aside, maybe $1 million set aside, so we're just gonna try to bond for the rest.
Okay, any questions or clarifications? Yes, sir. Step to the mic and give your name and address.
Hi, William Pond, 40 Oak Place. Is this the well number 2 that you were talking about at the selectmen's meeting?
I believe this is the Richmond Park well, but I would defer to the Water Superintendent.
See if I can get an answer for you.
Yeah, it's on both locations for all 4 wells. It's process controls in the plants, all the stuff related to daily running of the plant. It's not singling out one well, it's all 4.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir. You could step to the mic. And your name and address, please.
Paul Stratner, 117 Fuller Street. How much money are we talking about? Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
when you speak, you're not talking into your mic. It would be helpful. That'd be great.
Is that better?
That'd be great.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I think the question was how much money?
Yes.
It says appropriate $3 million.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 7 as presented, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 7 passes. Mrs. Lawler.
Article 5.
Article 5. Mr. Nazarella, you're going to speak to this? Article 5?
I move to the town approve Article 5 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Article 5 is printed in the warrant. That's on page 19. I'm sorry if I didn't get clear on that, page 19. Can I get the Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
You recommend that? All right. Nazarella, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yep.
Mr. Nazarella?
Move. I move to the town approve Article 5 as printed in the warrant.
I have a motion and a second. Article 5 is printed in the warrant. Can I get the Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen? Nazarella, would you like to speak for that, to that, please?
This is a housekeeping article that sets the maximum amount that can be spent during the fiscal year for each account. These accounts are unchanged from last year.
Any questions, clarifications, or comments, any discussion on Article 5? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 5 as presented in the handbook, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 5 passes unanimously.
Article 21.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Seeley.
I move that the town vote to approve Article 21 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'm going to ask for recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
Recommend.
Mr. Seeley, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. The town of Halifax seeks authorization to negotiate an agreement for payments in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as pilot, for the real and personal property located at 115 River Street. River Street Associates has represented that the project will be a solar-powered system with an alternating current nameplate capacity of 1.5 megawatts. Pilot agreements can provide predictability for town regarding tax payments town will receive each year.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Any questions, comments, clarifications? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 21 as presented on page 24 of the handbook, please raise the green card. All those opposed, please raise the red card. Article 21 passes.
Article 23.
Article 23. Do I have a motion to accept Article 23 as presented in the handbook? Mr. Gravenese, who proposes, would you like to speak to this? Oh,
I didn't know that was the rule. I move that we move Article 23 as printed in the warrant. I did this article on my own only because...
can you hold on one second? Do I have a second? I have a
sorry.
motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Second. Sorry to interrupt you there.
I have spent a lot of time the last year or so attending meetings, attending selectmen meetings, watching them on video, and I just don't know that our selectmen actually represent all of the residents of Halifax. I feel like they represent some, but I feel like there's a portion of us that may not be represented, so maybe if there were one or two more selectmen, we might have a better overall look at the whole town and what we all want, just what some of us want.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
You need the finance recommendation?
Yes, Finance Committee's recommendation.
Finance Committee does not recommend.
Does not recommend.
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
The Board of Selectmen does not recommend. The idea that the generally elected officials don't represent certain segments of the town, I just can't agree with. Each of us is, each of the members of the Board of Selectmen, as is every other elected official in town, is a general election. So it's the majority of people that vote for those positions, and that's where the election will end up. In this particular instance, the Board of Selectmen, just to go back one step, the office of the Board of Selectmen has been part of the Commonwealth since the earliest colonies. It goes back to the Plymouth colony. That's when the first selectmen were elected. Halifax has been in existence since 1734. We've had 3 selectmen ever since then. It seems to have worked fairly well. If the populace can remember, the selectmen don't make all the decisions. Town meeting makes decisions. All the selectmen do is administer the government in between town meetings for the most part. There are certain things that we do have authority over, but that's a fairly limited number. It's really the town meeting that makes the decisions. So if you want to get as much diversity as possible, we have it right here. Everyone here has the ability to speak, everyone here has the ability to vote, and every vote counts exactly the same. So the diversity is already here in this room. I have no understanding as to why 5 would be a magic number. If we have 3, we have 5, if we have 7, if we have 13, if we have 25, there doesn't seem to be any logic to 5. as opposed to 3. The good thing about 3, you do get some diversity, you do get change potentially every year, and being an odd number, we can always have we don't get tie votes, generally speaking. It doesn't, we don't see how this advances anything. It just adds another 2 people to the Board of Selectmen, and it doesn't seem to have any change to anything that we would do as a Board of Selectmen. We'll do whatever the town suggests, or whatever the town votes on, but as you're asking our opinion, having sat in this seat and having administered these functions of the Board of Selectmen, we don't see any advantage to having 5. In fact, we think it'll be a disadvantage, since now you're going to have even more people trying to make a decision. The most efficient form of government would be a single mayor, obviously. We'd have one person making decisions. We don't have that. We have 3 that make those decisions. It seems to have worked for over 300 years. I think it should stay the same.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Anybody else have any other comments? Any other comments, questions? Yes. Give us your name and address, Mrs. Winowitz.
And my name, but that's okay. 60 Sycamore Drive. Could we also hear from the Finance Committee why they did not recommend?
If I can do that. The Finance Committee here to speak on this, please.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So, we echo the sentiments of the Board of Selectmen. In addition to that, there is an added cost to adding additional selectmen. There's fees associated with that, so we did vote in that regard. It was also the sentiment of the Finance Committee that, as Mr. Bruno has indicated, that there is no added benefit to the town to increase the number of selectmen. So going to 5, for instance, as proposed in the article, would actually have a detrimental effect on the open meeting law, which requires quorum to be held in a public setting. If you move to 5 selectmen, then the quorum then becomes 3. So any 2 selectmen could hold negotiations or discussions in a private setting without the eyes and ears of the town. So on that basis, the Finance Committee does not recommend.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please, come to the mic. Your name and address, please.
Summer Schmeling, 32 Indian Path Road. Few things. So, school committee, planning board, various other boards in town have 5-member boards. Quorum, not an issue, typically. The detrimental cost to the town is $3,000. We just voted on an article to spend $3 million, just so everybody's aware of that. And I guess my question to the Board of Selectmen is, other towns around us have 5 selectmen, so at what point do you see the town of Halifax it being appropriate for us to have, like, what population do we get to before we decide that we're going to move from a 3 to a 5-member board? Because you seem to want to stay within tradition, which I can fully appreciate, but this town is growing and continues to grow. And so at what point do we say a 5-member board is necessary?
See if I can find an answer for you. One of the selectmen, Kidder.
Honestly, not sure that you can make that decision based on population. Various towns have various forms of government. Some towns, such as Bridgewater, now have an executive administrative form of government that does away with town meeting altogether, as a city council type of a government. Some towns have 7 members, some towns have 5. Halifax has 3. It's worked fine for over 200 years. At some point in time, we do agree, and we've talked about this in our meetings recently, that the form of government that we have in Halifax needs to be reviewed. You'll see future articles in this town meeting having to do with changing elected and appointed officials. All of that material should be, and it's part of what we hope to do in the next year, have an overall review of how we run the government. I don't believe in doing it piecemeal. I think we should have a plan, and that plan should be something that's well thought out. This is doing it piecemeal. It's just going to add one more factor in there. It's something that does need to be done. I can give you, for example, the wage and personnel bylaw is archaic and needs to be revised, and we're going to do that hopefully over the year, and the same with the rest of the government.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Yes, Mrs. Niffen.
Candace Niffen, Harvard Street. I think what concerns me the most about this article, and I will say that I was on the fence for a little while, I would expand a little bit on what Selectman Bruno said. I think the process here is important too. We have a history in this town that is not admirable, where we have elections that are uncontested. And more of the times that our selectmen elections have taken place, they've been uncontested. It seems to me that if you feel unrepresented, you put up a candidate that will represent your interests. And here we are this year with yet another uncontested selectmen's race. We have trouble getting volunteers. We just heard about the wage and personnel bylaw. That's not a responsibility of the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee, but we can't get volunteers to serve on these committees, so they have to assume that work. I think what we need to do is improve upon what we have in place and let the selectmen do the job. We have 3 selectmen who, well, with the exception of one, this board has been together 6 months. They're doing an admirable job, but they did have things to clean up, and they have still gone ahead and they're doing a great job. We have a town administrator who hasn't even been here 6 months. I just think it's time we have a cohesive board, we have things operating. If you feel unrepresented, it's a simple process. Run, or put up a candidate that represents you better to run. But you don't just keep adding members. You don't make a committee, in my opinion, you don't make a committee bigger because your person didn't get elected. You look at the job that's being done, and you give them an opportunity to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Andy Pongratz, 64 Palmer Mill. Just want to say what I would agree with Mr. Bruno. It's not whether we have 3 or 5 or 7 selectmen. We make the decisions on these cards when we come here. So I don't think we need to even have the added cost of $3,000 for 2 more selectmen. We don't need them. We make the decisions. We don't need more selectmen. And also, as far as the population goes, as the population increases, it's the same. The 3 can make the decision as long as we come and we speak and we make our votes and voices heard. Doesn't matter how many people are up there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mrs. Gainer. Your name and address, please.
Barbara Gainer, Pemmican Way. It was just mentioned by a previous speaker that the other towns are doing this. Halifax has 10 towns, Halifax being one, so 9 other towns that we use demographically and everything else, setting salaries and whatnot. Out of those 10 towns, only 2 have 5. So it's not true that all these other towns around are doing all of this and having 5, 2 out of the 5. And also, Mr. Moderator, to you, the Finance Committee, is it not true that selectmen are eligible for health insurance from the town, which we then pay half of, so it's not just the $3,000 for their $1,500 each stipend, but life insurance, health insurance?
I'll find out for you. Yes?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So it's not only the wage that the selectmen receive, but also the benefits are packaged as well in there. So the cost is, not substantial, but it is
it's
more
enough.
than the $3,000. Exactly.
And I would like to compliment Mr. Bruno. I think he was well spoken. I think the 3 gentlemen that we have running this board at the moment and the new town administrator are doing a great job with their short terms in office.
Thank you very much. Ms. Stroop, did you want to make a comment? I thought you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Jared Smaller, 34 Lawrence Road. I can understand arguments from both sides. Great point made here and as well over there. I look around the room, and this might get me run out of here pretty quick, but I think the median age in here is north of 50. And not only do we need to put forward more candidates and people that we feel represent us, but the younger population in our town needs to participate a lot more. We speak about the same people making decisions. We have the same people in this room every year making decisions. So talk to your neighbors and get more people involved. That's going to go a lot further than adding 2 more bodies and the extra cost. I think the article financially would have been better written if it was to take place after the 2024 fiscal year, where the cost could be incorporated in the 2025 budget. But we need more participation from the town people in general, not just by adding 2 bodies to the select board.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Yes, please.
Hi, Lori Costa Klein, 285 South Street. There's a couple of questions that I had. First of all, it's my understanding that if this is approved at town meeting, that does not mean we immediately start a special election for 2 new Board of Selectmen. Can someone explain what the process would be? My understanding is that similar to a COA vote that we had a few years back, we voted on it at town meeting, and then it was on the ballot the following year. Is that a similar process? Because do we need to get approval from the legislator in Massachusetts to increase our board size?
I believe that's the case, but I'll find out for you. Maybe Mr. Haddad could answer that too.
That is correct. This would be for the Board of Selectmen to petition to the general court, so it would have to go through the legislature, which could take several months or years if it were to pass.
Okay, so let's just play that forward. It gets approved tonight. The Board of Selectmen petitions the state. It's on the ballot next year. It gets voted down at election. That's it, correct?
This would not go to the ballot. This would just go to the state legislature.
Okay, and then would both positions be added if the state legislature approves it?
Yes, it would be as the article is written.
It would go 3 to 5 after the legislature approves. Okay, so I don't feel comfortable in this room with this small group of people voting to change the government of our town. I think that's really risky. I also would like to point out that I believe this article has been brought up the last 2 town meetings. 2 years ago, I believe it was represented and failed at town meeting, and last year I believe it was represented and passed over. So this is now the 3rd year in a row, and I believe it's been 2 candidates who've both run for Board of Selectmen that brought it forward. I just would like the group to take those points into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Ms. Troop. Name and address, please.
Hi, Amy Troop, 10 Hillside Ave. I believe one of the biggest reasons that a board of 5 might be a really good idea is exactly what happened last summer when we lost 2 selectmen at once and had 1 selectman, which I believe is the mess that we had to clean up. Is that correct? Is that the mess you were referring to? Bruno?
I can try to find out. Hold on, please.
The question was we had 1 selectman over the summer? That's true.
No, the question was that the mess that you were referring to that needed to be cleaned up? Or somebody in this room said the mess that needed to be cleaned up was what happened over the 3...
I didn't understand your question. So I was referencing all the other issues that had been left undone over the course of a period of time. I don't know how far back it goes. I do know that Mr. Seelig was able to keep things moving over the summer, including establishing the search committee for the town administrator, so that when the board was fully staffed, that we were able to move pretty quickly on that. So there are a lot of other issues that the board has been trying to address. I think you're well aware of most of them in terms of zoning issues and water issues and so on and so forth.
Right.
So we're working on those.
Right, and that's probably some of the issues that the town is saying that they're unrepresented on, is the water issues and the zoning issues that a whole room of people were telling you to say no, and you didn't listen to us, so that's why people feel unrepresented. And come to find out, none of you wanted it. You just voted it because you thought you had to, even though none of you wanted it, and nobody in that room wanted you to do it. But anyways, so I think that 5 people on the board to prevent lack of quorum and issues like happened last year, which were extremely unfortunate, would be very, very good idea. And yes, representatives per population is basically how state reps and all of that are calculated in the state. So I would think that maybe that would be us too, because I think we've come a long way from a population in 1734 till now.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no indication of further discussion.
Mr. Moderator.
Sorry, yes, Andy. Your name and
Andy
address.
Pongrat, 64 Palmer Mill, and I hate to drag this on, but thank you for letting me know, this is my first town hall, but thank you for letting me know that you guys have voted for this 3 times and said no, and you keep bringing it back.
Please, please hold your comments to yourself. Yes, Andy, go ahead.
So I think you get the message. Also, what happened last year, that is like once in a lifetime thing that happened. So you can't base our form of government on what happened last year in our selectmen's boards.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Jared Smaller, 34 Lawrence Road. Not entirely sure on the process of this, but I would ask the person who presented this article, and on behalf of the group of 10, would you withdraw it and table it for a year and let this current select board work for a year and the town administrator give him a year and see what happens?
Well, currently, right now, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Vote on this article.
Right, I was asking her to withdraw the article for a year and represent it at next year's. Okay, that's fine. No, that's your option.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no indication of further discussion, we'll vote on Article 23 as presented on page 24. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article is defeated.
Article 18.
Oh, Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
I move the town vote to establish the opioid settlements stabilization fund as printed in Article 18 of the warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Does 18 go along with 19? I'm sorry? 19 will have to come next. Oh. All right, just so you know that Article 18 is related to Article 19, so after we finish with 18, we'll move right to Article 19. But Article 18 is a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, can I get the Finance Committee's recommendation, please?
Finance Committee recommends.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
I would ask Mr. Haddad to explain this. It's sort of technical.
Mr. Haddad.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 18 would create the Opioid Settlement Stabilization Fund. As many of you are aware, as part of the opioid crisis, the Massachusetts Attorney General sued many drug manufacturers on behalf of the 351 cities and towns in the state. As a result, we have received quite significant funding from that settlement. In order for us to better account for it, there's special uses for this funding. We cannot just use it for anything. So this would be ultimately just to create an account to put that money aside into. In order for us to use it in the future, it would come back to town meeting for you to approve the use of it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any discussion, comments, questions? Seeing no indication on any discussion, we're going to vote on Article 18 as presented. All those in favor, please raise your green card.
Two-thirds vote.
Right, this will take a two-thirds vote. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 18 passes unanimously. So now, same page, page 23, we'll move right to Article 19.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $32,901.14 from the general fund opioid settlement revenues to the opioid settlements stabilization fund.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
We'd like to speak on that, please.
Mr. Moderator, again, I'd ask Mr. Haddad to explain this for us.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Haddad.
So this article would transfer the $32,901.14 into the stabilization fund that was just created in Article 18. That amount is the amount that we've received from the state as part of that settlement thus far.
Two-thirds also. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none. Again, this is a two-thirds vote. All those in favor of Article 19 as presented, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 19 passes unanimously.
Article 12.
Mr. Moderator,
Article 12.
I move that the town of Halifax vote to transfer from the undesignated fund balance the sum of $3,500 to support South Shore Resource and Advocacy Center for domestic violence intervention and prevention services for its residents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I get the Finance Committee's recommendation, please?
Finance Committee recommends.
Care to speak to this?
I would. This is one of the articles, for those that have come to town meeting frequently, this is a Troy Guerin article. Our former selectman was a champion of this cause, so it's an honor to present this article to you guys. This is a nonprofit that helps survivors of domestic violence, and I think it's a great contribution that the town should make.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments? Seeing no indication as such, Article 12 is presented. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes unanimously, Article 12.
Article 25.
Article 25. Is someone here to speak to this, the presenter? First of all, excuse me, make a motion. Okay, let's do that.
Barbara Gaynor, Pemmican Way. Barbara Gaynor, Pemmican Way. I move to ask the town to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 97A, commonly known as the Strong Chief Section, concerning the police chiefs, which reads as follows. Now, I don't know if you'd like me to read the whole thing or just have everyone look at their warrant.
No, you don't. We'll ask for a motion.
Printed in the warrant.
And move it as printed.
As printed in the book. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Yes, Mrs. Gaynor, you guys care to speak to this?
I'm going to ask the police chief to speak to this.
Okay, thank you. Chief Shabs, would you like to come up to the mic, or however you'd like to do it? You're the boss.
Yeah, we'll do the mic. I apologize for the small print because I can't see it. So if you look at your booklet and follow along, so the strong chief language, they use the term strong and weak. It doesn't really mean anything. It's very similar on the statute. The only difference is on the strong chief language, it will read, and you can follow along again on your booklet, the chief of police in any such town shall from time to time make suitable regulations governing the police department and the officers thereof, subject to the approval of the selectmen, provided that such regulations shall become effective without such approval upon the failure of the selectmen to take action thereon within 30 days after they have been submitted to them by the chief of police. The weak chief's language says the selectmen make suitable regulations governing the police department and the office. So nothing really changes. The selectmen remain the appointing authority. It just gives me greater discretion in setting policy for the department. The selectmen appointed me as the chief. I would think that they would trust me to make the right decisions for the town and for the residents. So it would basically just give me a little more leeway in running the department. The selectmen wouldn't be able to come up with some crazy demands of the police chief. Not that they have. We've had a good relationship with all the different boards that I've worked with. The fire chief is a strong chief. So when Halifax became the first police department in Halifax was 1924, and upon doing the research, the weak language was enacted and has never been changed. The fire department has changed a couple of times. Again, it can be changed from year to year depending on the mood of the residents. So I would just hope that the residents would vote to approve this article.
Okay, thank you, sir. Finance Committee's recommendation?
Finance Committee has no recommendation.
Board of Selectmen.
We don't take a position on this either. We'll leave it up to the body.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Yes, sir. Your name and address.
Jared Smaller, 34 Lawrence Road. Chief, I was unaware of this. I'm glad Ms. Gaynor brought this up. The chief said it well. The select board appointed him as chief to run the department. The select board's job is to run the overall town, not have their hands in any individual department on daily operations. What this does is this lets chief have complete control of his department and set the policy as he sees necessary, along with the post committee and what they say. So this is a great change for the management of the police department.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Number 32 Indian Path Road. I just have a question. So, right now, when the chief makes a decision within his department, it needs, depending on the decision, approval from the Board of Selectmen. So, if a chief is there for 20 years, but the Board of Selectmen changes, how is there oversight over the police department if we have a different Board of Selectmen and a different, say, attitude in the town if the chief remains the same?
Can I, Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
So currently, the way this system works with the police department, the Board of Selectmen makes, supposedly, I can tell you from experience that it doesn't really work this way, but supposedly the Board of Selectmen makes policy decisions for the police department. The Board of Selectmen hires police officers. The Board of Selectmen pretty much does all of that, and the police chief acts as the administrator, the head of that department. As opposed to the way the fire department runs right now, the fire chief is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, but he hires the fire department personnel. He oversees their policies and so on. The ultimate control over either of those two positions, if they're both strong chiefs as being projected here, is that the Board of Selectmen, is that each of those two positions reports to the Board of Selectmen. So the difference with the police department would be this board could tell the chief, well, we want this policy, and this policy, and it would just be done, as opposed to the chief would do whatever he's going to do, and then, like any other employee of town, would be responsible to the Board of Selectmen. So if the Board of Selectmen finds that he's not doing what he's supposed to do, then we would have opportunities to discipline him. Of course, there are also contractual issues involved in that also, which talks about how you might discipline a police chief or fire chief as opposed to somebody, a wage of personnel, but the general concept is the same. He reports to us as opposed to the Board of Selectmen having direct control over who's hired and who's fired.
Does that satisfy you, answer? Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, no indication of further discussion. We'll vote on Article 25 from page 25. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 25 passed.
Article 6.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Oh, God, yes.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to the reserve fund to cover extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures during fiscal year 2024 in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 6 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and to transfer from water retained earnings the sum of $50,000 to the Water Department Reserve Fund.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Again, is this two-thirds of majority? John, just one vote? Would someone like to speak to this article? Bob?
This is a housekeeping article that puts money aside for use in case of an emergency or unexpected expense. The amounts for fiscal year 24 are the same as fiscal year 23.
Okay, any questions, discussions, or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 6 as presented in the handbook on page 20, raise up your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Passes unanimously.
Article 9.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $1,267,745 from undesignated fund balance for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 2024 capital plan as printed in Article 9 of the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to this? Go ahead, if you could. Or any other questions about any of the entries on page 20 or 21? Finance Committee's recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we recommend.
Recommend.
Yes, your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Chelsea DaCosta. I live on Ocean Avenue. I see here that we have road maintenance, which seems pretty standard, but I was really curious, is this just like the patching that we've been doing, like, or are we replacing roads? What is this $300,000 allocated towards?
Would you like to answer that, or maybe?
I'm not sure what you think.
I'm sorry? Oh, Mr. Hayward, yes.
Steve Hayward, Highway Surveyor. Yes, it is. It is some of the money we use for doing cold patching. The last really 2.5 years, I haven't been able to spend any of our money from this $300,000 because I had received a $500,000 grant for Pine Street Bridge. It started out at $900,000, and then out the bid was up to $1.7 million. So I would have had to come up with the other just over $1 million. So I had to save that money. The bridge came in at $900,000, or just about $1 million. So now I have that extra money, so this summer I'll be able to do some actual paving and fixing of the roads, instead of just little piecemeals.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does that answer your question?
Not fully, no. It just honestly, if you've driven around Ocean Ave, Linden Street, the number streets, they're patching them, and I know you guys are doing your best, and it's not against that, but like, it's putting Band-Aids on broken legs. It's ruining our cars, it's ruining the police vehicles that we pay to replace and maintain, and I just want to make sure that our tax money is going towards things that really need to be done and not just roads that people who don't live in the town drive on. Because they replaced Monpont Street and they did such a fantastic job and it was so efficient. So, but we don't live on, like not everyone lives on that. Like, can we replace the streets that, like, do we have a plan for when we're gonna do that? Because our taxes count. Why can't we have nice roads too?
Let me see what I can find out. Steve, could you address that, please, Mr. Hayward?
Yep. Okay, so we just did this 1 mile of Plymouth Street last year. That was $400,000, and that was on a halfway decent road just to get the main road fixed correctly. So out of all the 53 miles of road, we're gonna need millions of dollars. I could ask for a bond, and nobody wants our taxes to go up. I don't want my taxes to go up, and we do the best we can with what we have. I can't fix the road with money that we don't have.
Fair enough. I have another question that's not related to the roads. I appreciate your answering those for me, though. I did also want to know, because last year, we did replace police cruisers. Now I see we want to place another 2. What's wrong with them? Like, why do they need to be replaced? They don't drive on the highway, they're not in high-speed chases, or they're not getting shot at. Like, what, I mean, I understand cars need to be replaced, but what's wrong with them that we need to replace 2?
Yeah. See, what I'd like to do, Chief, and not to avoid your question, I was going to break them down into sections rather than jumping all over. And when we get down to the police, I'll address that if you just give me a reminder on it, okay? So let's stick with the highway section first. Any other questions on page 21 at the very top, where it says highway, road maintenance, and wheeled excavator? Yes, Ms. Troop. Your name and address.
Amy Troop, 10 Hillside Ave. This question's for the highway supervisor. Was Route 58 and Route 106 done with state funds, or was that our Chapter 90 money?
I'll see if I can find that out for you. Mr. Hayward.
I can use either money. Out here on 106, I use the town money, because if I use Chapter 90 money, I have to use this stuff called Super Pave, which is double the amount of money to fix. So I use the town's money on that one, and most of the Chapter 90 money is going to be used on Pine Street, and the extra was for Pine Street, from the $300,000 each year.
Can I
Okay,
ask?
thank you.
I have a few questions for the highway supervisor. Also, I wanted to know, complete streets. Did we spend any of our Chapter 90 money on complete streets?
No, we have not.
Okay. Are we due to do that? Or is that on your list that we're...
Ms. Troop, could you address your questions?
Can you ask the highway supervisor if there are any plans to spend money on that obligation that we started with the state called Complete Streets?
Mr. Hayward.
Yes, we started that process a year and a half or 2 years ago, and when Pine Street came up, it got put on the back burner, but we want to start using that, going after that extra money in the grant that you're talking about.
Is it even funded?
Has it been funded?
No, I mean Complete Streets. I don't believe that it was maybe going to not be funded by the state. Can we check with that before we engineer 15 projects with our Chapter 90 money, which would mean that our roads will not be done?
I can answer that.
Sure.
We do not have to come up, as she says, with this extra money for engineering costs if we already have something in plan. We already had 2 sidewalks engineered, so that could be 2 of our projects that we don't have to pay for, the state on this Complete Streets would pay for.
But there's still another 13 projects that would need to be engineered with our Chapter 90 funds in order to comply with and actually be eligible for that grant, which, by the way, would be $400,000 tops. So we'd be spending somewhere between $250,000 of Chapter 90 money.
Well, what I'd like to do is stick to the topic that we have here.
It is.
That we're talking
It's
now.
directly
If,
about the
we're talking
roads.
about highway, the road maintenance for
Right.
$300,000, and the wheeled excavator for $150,000.
Right.
I think Mr. Hayward has answered your 5 questions. Anybody else have any
I
questions
actually
or
have one
comments?
more question
Could you-
about the wheeled
Could you hand the
excavator.
microphone back? You've had plenty of time. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Seeing no indication of further discussion.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
Where are you?
I'm behind you, over here.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm looking out here.
Sorry about that. Are we voting just on the highway section of this article?
Yes.
I just want to be clear about
We're gonna
that.
go
So
vote
the only
section
thing
by
we're voting
section.
on is the first 2 lines.
Yes, the first
Thank
2.
you.
The motion and a second for the highway on page 21, the top 2 lines for $300,000 and $150,080. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. First section passes for highway. Let's go to municipal maintenance. Would like to speak on that? Oh, it's the ADA compliance, the town hall, portico repair, and the library window replacement. Mr. Dow, would you like to address that, please?
There is several handouts that you should have gotten that detail these projects. For the ADA compliance, in that handout, there's several different projects that the town may or may not go after. We underwent an ADA evaluation that identified several projects that we need to move forward with and complete by the year 2030. This is our first effort at going after and completing some of those things. The list provided, like I said, is just an example of some of the projects we may pursue. There may be others that we do. We may not pursue all of those on the list. The Town Hall portico repair is exactly as it states. The portico in front of Town Hall is in need of repair. It's sagging. And library window replacement is exactly as it sounds as well. The windows at the library need to be replaced. That's basically what it is.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can I get a Finance Committee recommendation on the municipal maintenance?
Yes, Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen, please.
Yes, selectmen recommend.
Would you care to speak on the ADA compliance and the other?
Other than what Mr. Haddad has just said, no, it is something that we will be required to do and has been on the back burner for a while, and it needs to be done.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no indication, we'll vote on the municipal maintenance as shown in the handbook on page 21. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes, municipal maintenance. Move on to the fire department. There's 2 lines on item fire command vehicles and the Motorola monitor pages. Can I get a recommendation from the finance?
Finance Committee recommends.
Anybody like to speak to this motion? Chief, would you, or who's presenting this?
Chief Witham is a department head. He can speak to the article.
Chief, would you like to speak to this? Well, I need a motion in a...
Oh, I'm sorry. If you need a motion, I would make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Chief, could you just speak to this, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm looking to replace our current 2008 F350 Forestry 2. When I got some of the bids back, they were a little bit high to me. They were about $130,000 to $140,000 for the specification that we were looking for. I was kind of trying to think out of the box a little bit, see how I could save a little bit of money. The current vehicle that's assigned me right now is a Ford F350. Kind of suits the needs of what I'm looking for. So what I'm proposing is taking the current vehicle that I'm driving every day to make it forestry, change that vehicle that we currently have, obviously newer, and buy a new command vehicle, and it's a savings of about $50,000 to $60,000. So the forestry itself will be about 130 plus at the time. The new command vehicle that I'm looking for is at around $80,000 as I put in here. It's beneficial for our department because I'll get both vehicles that I'm needing, the newer command vehicle that's better set up and suited for our needs, and also the new forestry looking to replace.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions or comments regarding... Yes, Andy, if you could, your name and address, please.
Andy Pongrat, 64 Palmer Mill. So the town currently has 3 command vehicles. Chief wants to upgrade one, get a new one for himself, to the tune of $80,000. And we have a brand new brush truck. How big is that brush truck? The 550 we have in there, Chief? We have a brand new F550. And the second one that Chief referenced that is an 08. How many miles are on that, Chief? Do you know, happen to know offhand? 20,000? I wish I had a truck that had 20,000 miles on it. I think the $80,000 is money we don't need to spend on a new vehicle. For the amount of times we have brush fires in the town, Lord, I hope this doesn't come have to bite me, but we don't need a new brush truck, upgraded brush truck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, Chief, would you like to comment?
So let me comment on that. Yes, we do have 2 vehicles that he's talking about. One is the bigger brush truck, which is an F350. It's got bars on the front of it and on the side of it so that we can go into the woods a little bit further, a little bit deeper. And the other vehicle that I'm talking about replacing now, the pump on it, we currently carry water. We're only carrying about 300 gallons of water. With the newer system, we're going to upgrade a little bit. But they're not also used just for this community here. We're also on mutual aid agreements with other communities around here, so those vehicles go to other communities as well, and are called quite frequently for both vehicles. One has a different purpose, going deep through the woods, the other one also for going in between houses in small areas. That's the purpose of both vehicles. The current vehicle that I'm driving, is obviously funding from the state, COVID funding. So, like I said, thinking out of the box, trying to save the community a little bit of funding here, and move the vehicle that I'm currently driving to the Forest Fire 2, and obviously purchase the command vehicle. Well, the command vehicle that he's talking about is out back. Yes, it's not set up properly for obviously what we do. The command vehicle itself, I do use in this community, but I also respond to other communities as well and set up for a command system, which we currently do not have a proper setup in any one of those vehicles. So with all of the new things out there, the ASHA training and the other training and things like that, we do need a proper command vehicle, and we do not have one set up at this time.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments regarding the fire department? Seeing no indication of further discussion, I'll take a vote on page 21, the fire department fire command vehicle and the Motorola minute of pages. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Passes. Police department. Do we have someone to speak to the motion, please? Motion. Yes, please.
And I would move the police department in Article 9.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Chief, would you like to speak to this, please?
Yeah, so to answer the previous question, so what happens is we have a maintenance plan. So we've been doing it probably 7 years, where we replace 2 cruisers every year. So it keeps my maintenance costs low, because if we take the cruisers longer, our maintenance cost goes up, and then we're back here asking for more money to repair the vehicles. The vehicles go 24/7, 365. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had any major accidents or major mechanical failures. But as you know, those things get very expensive. So that's why we just kind of keep up with the program every 2 years. I'm sorry, 2 cruisers a year, and that's the thought behind the article.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can I get a finance committee recommendation on the police department?
Finance committee recommends.
The board of selectmen recommendation?
Yes, we recommend.
Okay, yes. Name and address, please.
I just am curious to know the average length of time that we have each cruiser in our possession. I do respect that they run 24/7, and I don't expect us to keep them for 20 years, but what's the average anticipated amount of time we're going to keep that?
So we have frontline 5 frontline cruisers. So we'll probably keep them for about 3 years before they get
So every 3 years we are replacing. So in 3 years we're going to be discussing replacing the vehicles we're discussing today. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Summer Schmeling, 32 Indian Path Road. What are we doing with the 2 cruisers that we're getting rid of?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What are we doing with the 2 cruisers that we're the 2 current cruisers that we're replacing? What are we doing with them?
Chief?
The plan is to trade them in, so we get we were kind of shocked at the price that was quoted this year, so we got trading them in, and we're getting some good money on it again because they're low mileage and they're fairly new, so that'll offset the cost of the cruisers. Because mind you, it's just not the cruisers, it's also the equipment that goes with it, and obviously Ford, they change the sizing of the new computer setups, everything on the cruisers itself is going to be all brand new, just about every other year. So it's kind of a built-in fail-safe that Ford has when we buy cruisers.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no one, yes, your name and address, please.
Hi, Karen Favor, 66 Clydo, Bosworth. Each year we say that we're going to trade them in. However, then we find them in the recycling lot or out front for inspectional services. So can we just change it to word it that they will definitely be traded and not traded or?
Chief, would you like to address that, please?
So, yeah, so the two cruisers that we traded in last year were traded in because there was an amendment made at town meeting last year. The year before, one of our cruisers, which was the old animal control officer, did go to inspectional services because it wasn't specified. But if the, if the members, if the residents want to amend it, I guess we could do it. That'd be up to. I mean, the plan is to trade them in. We've already got quotes on both vehicles that are being traded in.
So the amendment would be, if they're going to be traded in, you'd suggest that the cars be what now?
I apologize. What article is it? Late.
It's Article 9. Page 21. That help? We were on the highlighted one that says Police Department. We're voting on 2 police cruisers, bulletproof vests, and portable radios.
I thought we were voting on the police cruisers.
That's the very first line.
Can we put something in that says the cruisers will be traded in?
We put something in what, I'm sorry?
To amend the article, say the cruisers, both cruisers will be traded in?
Just point of information, rise to your point of information, please. Could you go to the mic, please? Oh, Deborah.
Barbara Gaynor, Pemmican Way. The police chief stated that they are being traded in. He already stated he got amounts for the new cruisers with the trade-in, so I'm not really sure why this has to be amended, because it's already taken care of.
The chief said they were going to be traded in. So you wouldn't? Correct. I didn't see a question. Mr. Small.
Jared Smaller, 34 Lawrence Road. I appreciate the thought of knowing where our property is going, but I think it's foolish financially to lock the chief into trading them every year when that may not be in the best financial interest of the town on any given year. Some years auction may be more profitable. Other years it may be more profitable to the town to pass them down to another department that is in need of a vehicle without going and spending $60,000 on a newer vehicle for them. So I think that fiscally it's irresponsible for us to lock us into one method of disposition for cruisers.
Technical question, I didn't know how. If you could do it, evidently, on the line item that says 2 police cruisers, it could be amended to say, to agree with the chief, that it's going to be traded in. I mean, that's the intent. That's what he's proposing. But if you want to make amendment to actually include it on that line, do I understand that correctly? You'd have to make a motion to amend that line.
That's what I did. And I'm okay with traded or auctioned, but to add a car to another department that hasn't been approved by the town, taxpayers, that's my concern. Not that it either or, auctioned or traded is absolutely fine, but when we start adding fleet to different departments that don't already have a vehicle, it's not a replacement, it's adding, that's costing the town money, and the taxpayers should be aware.
Okay, so I guess my question to you is then, do you want the amendment on there as
As my original request,
Okay,
yes.
so now we have a motion to...
Mr. Moderator, could I just interject really quickly here?
Yes, sir.
So I agree we want to get something for our vehicles, absolutely. but I do like the idea that there is some flexibility with replacing a car that we currently have with a better one, right? So maybe, might I suggest, we could use that either as trade-in, as auction, or to replace an existing car that we have, not adding to the fleet, right? So I know one of the cruisers was used for the animal control vehicle. I thought that was a good idea because we didn't have to go out and buy a new vehicle for that vehicle, and I thought that fit that need very well. So I just would hate to lock in. I understand what you're saying, Karen, absolutely, but it might make more financial sense to replace a car we already have with one of these vehicles to save the town money in the long run. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Moderator?
Yes.
Point of information, or point of procedure, I guess. I know the previous speaker talked about a motion to amend. I'm not sure she made one, and I didn't hear
No,
a second.
we are going to need a motion in a second, so if you'd like to make a motion to amend that line.
I did make a motion to amend the article. That was my request. But I will also say that originally when we got into, I was on the Finance Committee when we originally started doing the replacement of 2 vehicles, and I was very highly for it because it was eating up our budget with repairs. So I'm very for replacing the vehicles by all means for the police department and have, good, but it was also supposed to be traded in or auctioned, and that was not happening, and the taxpayers were not aware of it. Cars were just being added to fleets to, okay, let's give this department one, let's give this department one, and that's not what it was supposed to happen, and that's why I'm asking for the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the police department for the 2 police cruisers, if I understand this correctly, that to be amended, that the 2 cruisers will be traded in. Do I have a second on that amendment?
Traded or auction.
Traded in or auction.
Mr. Moderator, point of information.
Yes, sir.
Could you restate what the amendment, the motion to amend is, or ask the person who made the motion to tell us exactly what the wording will be that we'll be voting on?
Mrs. Favor, if you could, what will the amendment actually, then the motion actually be?
The motion is to amend the article to read that 2 police cruisers will be traded in or auctioned.
Okay, thank you.
We have a second?
No, I don't have a second yet. There's a motion on the floor to amend that line item. Do I have a second? Okay, now I have a motion and a second. We're going to vote on to amend that. I'm going to ask that all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. The amendment did not pass. Okay, so now we're going to vote. We're going to vote on the motion that was made originally for the that small one that says police department for 2 police cruisers, the bulletproof vests, and the portable radios. All those in favor of the article as it appears on page 21, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. It passes as presented. Okay, we can move right on to accounting, the GASB study.
I would make a motion to approve the accounting as printed in the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept it as the accounting as printed. How about the Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
The Board of Selectmen?
Yes, we recommend.
Would anybody care to speak to this? Yes, Mrs. Nolan.
Sandy Nolan, accountant. This article comes up every 2 years. We are required by the state to do an actuarial study of our OPEB liability. OPEB is other post-employment benefits for our retired employees. This is the year that we need to do the study, and that's the amount we need.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing no indication, we're going to vote on the page 27 on the article as presented for accounting. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those against, please raise your red card. That line passes.
Article 16.
Mr. Haywood, Article 16, as it appears in the handbook on page 22. Mr. Haywood, do I have a motion, please?
I'm going to pass over that, the money situation the town has. I'm just going to pass over this article and let the town know I'm going to be asking this in their future again.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pass over Article 16. All those in favor of passing over, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Unanimous, we pass over.
Article 10.
Okay, Article 10, as it appears in the handbook on page 21. Do I have a motion? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
John Chabon, Board of Assessors. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $18,660 for the assessors recertification account, or take any other action relative thereof.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Yes.
For the assessment.
Jack, you're going to have to say that again. You didn't come over the mic.
Let me do that one more time. I move that the town vote to transfer from undesignated fund balance the sum of $18,600 for the assessors recertification account.
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Do you care to speak to that?
This is the amount every year that we request for the triannual assessment that we do every 3 years.
Okay, thank you,
We spread
sir.
it out over 3 years instead of just trying to get it 1 year at a time.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Can I have a Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends.
A Board of Selectmen recommendation?
Yes, we recommend.
Okay, do we have any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on Article 10 as it appears on 21 in the handout. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 10 passes unanimous.
Article 24.
Article 24. We're on page 25 on the handout. Would someone care to make a motion on this? It does say proposed by John Gravenese, but similar facsimile.
Mayor Gravenese, 98 Lido Bosworth Road. I make a motion to move the article as written in the warrant. This came about because I've noticed over the last year or two, we have lost so many valuable employees in our
Moderator.
town. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to
Order.
make a second person. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was going to wait until she's done. I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second in regard to Article 24? Okay, sorry, my
No,
fault.
that's okay. So this was kind of out of a need for right now, we have town clerk, who we're lucky she's been here for a long time. We have a new tax collector who's great, but I don't know as far as our succession plan with people who have been training or coming up out of the ranks like we have in the past. We don't have many qualified candidates if these people were to leave. We lost so many people in these key positions over the last couple of years because they come in here, they get trained, they learn a lot of skills, they get a lot of municipal experience, and they go to other towns that they can get appointed by, making a lot more money with better benefits and in a different working environment. So I'm worried that if our current credit collector or our town clerk or our highway surveyor leave, we're going to have elect somebody and we don't really have anybody set up in succession that's being trained and groomed to become that next person. That was my concern. And if we had to, if someone left in the middle of a cycle, we would have to do a special election, which would cost thousands of dollars. We would have to have a candidate, which I don't know that we have another candidate. We have a very small pool of people in Halifax that are not currently working or employed. I was looking out for the town and their best interest moving forward as far as covering these positions, which are no longer entry level. They're very involved, they're professional, need a lot of training. That was my reason for it.
Great, thank you very much.
Moderator?
Yes.
I'll raise a point of order. I'm not sure that this motion is in order and properly, and I would ask the town council perhaps to explain what is the problem with it.
I will find out about that.
By the town administrator.
I can answer that question, Mr. Moderator. As motioned, that motion would not successfully, if passed, would not accomplish what is written. In order for that to occur, you would need to amend the motion as presented on the screens, which would be the correct process to move forward if town meeting were to vote that.
So if I understand it correctly, that as it's written and as it appears on page 25 of the handbook, that would not be able to legally be that.
Correct. If the motion presented would not legally allow the town to move forward to pursue that change.
So then if I understand that correct, also that I need the petitioner to amend her article.
You would need a motion to amend, correct?
I would need. Mrs. Gravity.
So can I make a motion to amend my article to read as such?
To read as such?
That, or I can either read it out loud or read it off, read it.
By point of order, what we've been doing is moving articles as printed in the warrant. This one as printed in the warrant is not correct. So I think the person making the motion would have to read the amendment so that we get it on the record.
So we have the exact wording. If you wouldn't mind, Mrs. Gravity.
Move that the town requests its representatives in the general court to introduce special legislation in substantially the form set below to make the positions of town clerk, treasurer collector, and highway surveyor appointed rather than elected, and to authorize the general court the approval of the Board of Selectmen to make changes to the form to the text thereof as may be necessary or advisable in order to accomplish the intent and public purpose of this legislation and in order to secure passage. An act to make the position of town clerk, treasurer collector, and highway surveyor appointed in the town of Halifax, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and the general court assembled, and by the authority as the same as follows. Section 1. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, the positions of town clerk, treasurer collector, and highway surveyor should be appointed by the Board of Selectmen in the town of Halifax. Section 2. This act shall take effect upon passage.
Okay, I have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? As presented. Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Stand by 1 minute. I have a Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for Article number 24 as amended.
Again, point of order.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be clear. The motion that's on the floor is the motion to amend.
That's correct. That's what we'll be discussing right now. Any questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none. I'll ask for a Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee has no recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Ask for the Board of Selectmen recommendation on the amendment.
The Board of Selectmen recommends the amendment.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the amended Article 24 as presented. All those in favor? On the amendment, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. The amended article passes.
Sorry, the amendment passed.
Yep, that's what I meant, the amendment.
Now we move on to the amended article.
Now we have to vote on the actual amended article. Thank you. I think it's easy. Okay, I need a motion on the floor to the amended Article 24. The one that we just voted on. Now we have to vote on the... Oh, do I have a second? All right. I have a motion and a second to vote on Article 24 as amended. Anyone like to speak to that, please? Jeannie, you could give your name and address, please.
Move closer,
Go a little closer, yep.
Jean Gallant, Cranberry Drive. Cody, can you just explain the difference between the two amendments? Because the second amendment seems like a lot of legal stuff that I don't really understand. Thank you.
Let me see if I can get an answer for you.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. The amendment itself ultimately is just the means of enacting this. The article as presented didn't provide a means of, if it were to pass, of how we would make that happen. So the amendment just explains how we would get there, which would be for the Board of Selectmen to petition to the general court. So the outcome is ultimately the same, it's just the means of how we get there.
Yes, sir. Do you have a question? Your name and address, please.
40 Oak Place. We're all here voting.
You get a little closer, please. Yeah, thank you.
You can't hear me?
Yes, now we can.
We're all here voting because we like to vote. You know, we want this responsibility. I can't believe these people came here to vote against voting for these three positions. So I'm against this taking away our vote. Thank you.
Mrs. Niffen, could you give your name and address, please?
I just hope, I don't think I'm the only one, but all this discussion that has been going on, I can't hear any of it. I can hear the motion read. I can't hear what you're saying. I can hear what Cody just said. I think this is a really important article that we just have to get closer to the mic or something because we're not hearing the discussion.
Is it just because people aren't speaking close enough to the mic, or is it sound system reverberating, or just not being heard?
If everybody, when they're speaking, could pretend they're eating the microphone, get it very close to your mouth, that would be better.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Haywood.
Steve Hayward, Highway Surveyor. I am against this article. I have, out of 6 people, I have 5 employees that live in the town and they care about the town. You start hiring, having the selectmen or whoever appoint these positions, they have total control. I answer to the taxpayers. They don't like it, but I'm doing it, they vote it out. You put it in the selectmen's hand, it's up to them. And I'm not saying nothing bad about them. I'm just saying that's how it would be. And people that work at the highway department, they actually do care about this town.
Yes, Mrs. Gravenese.
Mary Gravenese, 98 Clydo, Bosworth Road. This isn't about people not caring about the town. The town has to start running like a business. In order to do that, we need people that have education, experience, qualifications to do the jobs. They are no longer entry level. They are, including the highway. The highway is a $2 million budget that has to be balanced. Someone who, my kid could do it. If he was 18 working for the highway, I wouldn't want him running for highway surveyor because he knows how to run a lawnmower or clear brush or keep an area clean or take care of hazardous waste. This is a big job. This is important, and it's about budgeting and finding ways to cut costs and be efficient. And the same with all of these jobs. They're serious jobs. Our tax collector takes care of millions and millions of our dollars every year. We can't have someone that just is popular that wants to put a sign up if anyone left to get that job. We can't afford that. That's not what this is anymore.
Thank you. Mr. Haywood.
I'm not talking the other two positions, I'm talking my position, and I know that people that work for the barn, they do a good job if they wanted to be elected like I do. I care about the town. I make sure when I do all this stuff with the money, when we do a big projects, even the people that would be hired by the selectmen go to engineering firms for big jobs. So you're still gonna be paying more money for somebody to do what I'm doing. I'm not educated like a person that goes to college, but I can still do the job.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Seeing no one, oh, I'm sorry, yes. Your name and address, please.
Patricia Sullivan, B15 Line Lane. For someone who faithfully goes to the voting polls, I just want to say that I would not want to lose my vote for these positions. I feel like they should still be voted on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Your name and address, please.
Madeline Flood, Twin Lakes Drive. I just have a question about if we're electing someone to be a town clerk, does the person who is running for town clerk have to be a Halifax resident? If that's the case, we might not be getting a person who's actually better qualified. We did not have to vote to get our new town administrator. We've got somebody from the outside. And that's my biggest concern, is making sure that we get the correct, a well-qualified person. So I'm just concerned if somebody has to live in the town of Halifax in order to run for the position, we might not be getting the best person.
See if I can find that out.
Moderator?
Yes, sir.
All the elected positions, you can only be elected if you're a voter in the town of Halifax. That's all the elected positions, from planning board all the way.
Yes, Mr. Gaynor.
Barbara Gaynor, Pemmican Way. Another point of information, please. This has been done before, back in the early 2000s, 2007 maybe. The town clerk was the town clerk treasurer. A vote was taken at town meeting. The next year, that had to be put on the ballot in order for the change to take place. The following year, it was voted in, so therefore, that's what happened. 2014, they tried to appoint the treasurer-collector at that point, and we had to go through the same process. Will this be the same process, that it will be voted tonight, and then next year it will be on a ballot, date certain, next election, and then the following year it takes place?
Let me see if I can find that out.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. No, that would not be the case. As the amended motion states, this would be to petition to the general court, and that does not require an election of the town. That would just require special legislation through the state senate and House of Representatives.
So, to you, Mr. Haddad, to the moderator, so what you're saying is that the state senate and the state representatives will decide if we should do this?
As the amended motion states, correct. The Board of Selectmen would petition to them, and then it would be special legislation that they would vote on.
Is there a reason why it's changed? Just out of curiosity, when it was changed, the process? Or did they do it wrong all those other years ago? I guess I'm just trying to follow through and understand better.
This is the process that we received from our town council on how to get there ultimately.
Okay, all right, thank you. And just if I could, currently in the treasurer collector's office is Halifax residents that could in fact step up, and the only office is the town clerk, as Mr. Hayward said, he has them. And I just think it's a little disingenuous to say that there aren't people in this town that could step up and do the job if elected by the people.
Yes, ma'am.
Susan Vogt, 14 Deer Run Road, Halifax. I just want to say I'm in favor of this article because I do think limiting the interview process or the election to Halifax residents definitely limits the talent pool that we could be getting for this position. I think it should be appointed. Also, I'd like to know how many other towns still do things this way with the election process. Can someone let me know how many
I'll see
towns
if I-
around?
I'll see if I can find that out for you. How would you know?
I can't provide you with exact numbers, but in our research, there are, throughout the Commonwealth, a number of communities do still have an elected town clerk. The number is even smaller for elected treasurer collectors, and there were very few that we could find that had an elected highway surveyor or would be a highway superintendent or DPW director.
Yes, sir.
Closer this time. Hello. I looked up that, and it's 253 towns elect their clerk. The rest of the 351 towns appoint their clerk. That's the number I got.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Jared Smaller, 34 Lawrence Road. Say this does pass, and as the amended article reads, shall take effect upon passage. So I have a two-part question. Does upon passage mean by the state legislature? Okay, so there's part one. Now, say it takes 6 to 18 months for that to happen, which is about how fast things move on Beacon Hill. We'll have an election cycle, possibly 2, in the time that it would take them to respond. So if we elect our officials as the bylaw is written now, what happens to those positions? Because we've elected 3 positions that if this changes to appointed, are those 3 people out as soon as this passes and the select board gets to appoint their 3 people? Or do they get to finish out their term before new appointments are made?
I will think it would be one or the other, but I'll see if I can find out for you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The elected terms would be completed. At the end of that elected term, the position would then become appointed.
Okay, any other further discussion, comments, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just want to echo the sentiment, and I think it's been my sentiment all along. I am for electing, putting the vote in the town's hands, letting people make these decisions versus appointing. A lot of people have spoken about the difficulty we've had on our Board of Selectmen. We've had a couple of situations in the past where folks that were in positions that were appointed were not reappointed. Less qualified individuals were appointed in their place. And we've had to hire supplemental people at a cost to the town to supplement the uncertified, unqualified individuals to perform the job. I don't think that taking the vote to elect people away from the town for these 3 positions will guarantee that the most qualified candidate is appointed. I also would like to state that I think that we all get a say in who serves our town in these 3 positions when they're elected. If they are, we have not run into a situation that I'm aware of where someone unqualified has done the job. We've had a really great pool of people who've performed. In the most recent election, I believe it was for treasurer, we had 2 candidates, one from the private sector, one who was in the municipal. Municipal government is very different than running a business, and I think that you need to be careful of thinking about appointing people that don't have municipal experience. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Seeing no indication of further discussion, we will vote on Article number 24 as amended and as presented on the 2 boards on each side, just so we're clear on that. Okay, all those in favor of the amended Article 24, raise your green card. All those opposed, raise your red card. Defeated.
Article 15.
Article 15.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Nezrallo, would you like to speak to this, please?
I move that the town vote to transfer from undesignated fund balance the sum of $150 for the use of the trustees for county cooperative extension service and authorize the selectmen to appoint town director within 15 days as provided in revised chapter 128, section 41 of Massachusetts General Laws.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
I have a motion and a second. Article 15 as presented on page 22. Can I get a Finance Committee recommendation, please?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
Tomorrow, speak to this. This article allows the town to participate in 4-H youth and family development.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor. I'll open it up for discussion. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 15, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 15 passes unanimously.
Article 8.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Bruno.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $26,000 to fund, $260,000 to fund the anticipated provisions of the collective bargaining agreement fiscal year 2024 between AFSCME, AFL-CIO, Union Council 93, Local 1700, Highway Cemetery, IAFF, Local 3159, Firefighters, Massachusetts, COP, Local 459, Sergeants, the Halifax Association of Police Patrolmen, the Town of Halifax, wage increases for non-union employees.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bruno, would you like to speak to this, please?
This article puts aside the $260,000 to fund provisions of collective bargaining agreements that the town will settle for fiscal year 2024. The town is also undergoing a compensation and reclassification study, hence there not being a across-the-board wage increase for personnel, wage of personnel at this town meeting. Once that study is complete, we intend to come back to the town meeting to implement the recommendations so our staff are fairly compensated. The funding would be utilized for that expense as well.
Thank you, sir. Just want to double check. Thank you. Open this up to any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, vote on Article 8 as presented on page 20. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red. Article 8 passes.
Article 13.
Board and Laws, 33 Highland Circle, and a member of the Silver Lake Regional School Committee. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $38,000 to support a part-time school resource officer for the Silver Lake Middle School or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Point of information, he hasn't designated the funds. Perhaps the accountant can help him.
Sorry, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $38,000 to support a part-time school resource officer for the Silver Lake Middle School.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Wait a minute.
So just to add briefly about this.
Can you hold on one second? Okay, sorry.
Just to add briefly about this, we vote on this annually. We have a part-time school resource officer that comes from the Kingston Police Department. All three of the towns pay a portion of the salary that goes into that.
Sorry, I wasn't sure. Did I get a second? There was a motion
Yes.
on the floor and a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen?
Yes, Board of Selectmen recommends.
Okay, open up for discussion. Any questions, any comments? Seeing none, we'll vote on Article 13 as presented in the handout. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 13 passes.
Article 22.
Ms. Nesrella, would you like to speak to this?
Move that the town vote to approve Article 22 as printed in the warrant.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anybody, let me ask for the Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen?
I'm going to speak to it.
Okay.
This article will allow the town to lease out the Hemlock Lane landfill for up to 30 years for the purpose of installing solar array. The town would receive annual lease payments and may have the opportunity to purchase the power generated at the facility for use in municipal buildings at a cheaper cost than the open market.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions, discussions? Yes, please, your name and address.
Chelsea DaCosta. I live on 12 Ocean Ave. I did watch the video, so that's why I was familiar with it, that this is going to discount our municipal buildings for electricity, but not the town's payers. Like, nobody that actually lives here will benefit from that discount.
Let's see if I can find out.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So we have a community electricity aggregation that is open to our residents, and that allows you to get your electricity at a discounted rate. This would be for the town to lease the land for the purpose of the solar array. We would get an annual lease payment from that, and there may be the opportunity to get electricity at a cheaper rate, but that would just be for the town's municipal buildings. So ultimately, if that were to go through, it would just be a savings in the annual operating budget.
Great, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, vote on Article 22 as presented in the handbook on page 24. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Article 22 passes.
Article 20.
Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. Finance Committee recommendation, please.
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Moderator, the town seeks authorization to negotiate an agreement for payments in lieu of taxes for the real and personal property located at 115 River. River Street Associates has represented that the project will be a solar-powered system with an alternating current, 1.5 megawatts. Pilot agreements can provide predictability for the town regarding tax payments the town will receive each year.
Great, thank you, sir. Any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on Article 20 as presented on page 23. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Motion passes unanimous.
Article 19, which we already did. Article 14.
Article 14. Article 14
Court
is
and laws.
on page 22.
Board and Laws, 33 Highland Circle, Halifax, and member of the Silver Lake Regional School Committee. I'm going to move in just a moment to amend this article. I'll read a brief letter from the school district as to why. Dear town citizens, the Silver Lake Regional School District will be amending the Silver Lake High School HVAC project amount and scope on the floor at town meeting. The original HVAC project submitted to the towns was to replace two rooftop units at the school. These two rooftop units supply heat and air conditioning to the cafeteria and auditorium. Due to significant material and labor cost increases for this project, the Silver Lake Regional School Committee voted to amend this article on the floor at town meeting to support one rooftop HVAC unit at the Silver Lake Regional High School cafeteria. Based on the Silver Lake FY24 assessment percentages, the town's funding support for this project would be as follows. And for the town of Halifax, that would be $100,100. And accordingly, I'm going to get the language right this time. I move, Mr. Moderator, that the town vote to amend the amount in Article 14 to $100,100 for the replacement of one rooftop unit at the Silver Lake Regional School District, so that the article now reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $100,100 for the replacement of one rooftop unit at the Silver Lake Regional School District High School, or take any other action relative thereto.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
The proponent hasn't identified the source of fundings. Maybe the accountant can help.
Thank you. See if we can find that out. Mrs. Nolan?
I'm just going to read the motion. I move that the town vote to transfer from Special Purpose Stabilization Fund 1 the sum of $100,100 for the replacement of one rooftop unit at the Silver Lake Regional School District High School.
Second.
Okay, so we have an amendment, a motion to amend.
Point of order. I think there was no motion on the floor, so what Mrs. Nolan just did was the motion to
amend.
Well, it was the motion. That's the motion. So there's no amendment. There's no amendment. I think we can act on that motion.
Is that correct? Can I double check on that?
So there was no need to move to amend the language because there was no source of funding.
Now my question is also, when it was 200,000, it needed to be two-thirds. What's the safest way? It would still be two-thirds of the stabilization. So I don't need to amend it. We're just going to take a motion. Okay, 100,000. Okay, here's the explanation I got. We don't need to amend it, or we don't need to vote on the amendment, because you're presenting the motion with the new figure of $100,100.
Okay.
And it's for one rooftop unit.
Okay.
And then because it's because it's from the stabilization fund, we're going to need a two-thirds vote in order for this to pass.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, and if I could just explain, or do you want to do the recommendations? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second for the one, and then a second? Okay, thank you. Finance Committee recommendation, please, on the
Finance Committee recommends.
Board of Selectmen.
We recommend.
Okay, would you like to speak to this, sir?
Yes. The air conditioning units are 15-year units. and we are at 19 years with those units, which is why we were hoping to replace both of them. If they happen to go, it will constitute kind of an emergency for all three towns. Now, it's obviously hard to get the parts. You can tell by the expense, it's very expensive. The estimate for the two together came in far more than what we had hoped for, which is why we're asking for the one. The one that we're asking for in particular is over the cafeteria, which, if that were to go, would create working conditions for our cafeteria workers and things like that that would not be ideal, to say the least. And hence, that's what the request is now for this year, and then we'll look at the other unit in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, Mrs. Nolan.
Just a clarification on the funding source. That's from our stabilization fund. We had put aside some money that we had been returned from Silver Lake for special purpose to be used for Silver Lake capital projects. Last year, we spent some of the money on the tennis court. This year, they're asking to spend some of that money on this air conditioning.
Okay, yes, your name and address, please.
Karen Faber, 66 Clyde, Bosworth. I'm not saying I'm against this article. I'd just like to know how much do we currently have in that stabilization so that we know in case there's future articles. Thank you.
See if I could find that out. Mrs. Nolan?
We have just over $1 million in the stabilization fund. In total, there is, if we spend this $100,100 on this air conditioning unit, on the Silver Lake money, we'll have about 100, I don't have the exact number, but at least $101,000 for Silver Lake purposes.
Mr. Haddad has the exact amount.
The exact amount for Silver Lake is $202,458.79 that we have in there right now. That would be before this article.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing no indication of further discussion, we'll vote on Article 14 as the number was amended. Oh, I thought you had a question, my fault. All those in favor of Article 14, please raise the green card. All those opposed, please raise the red card. Article 14 passes unanimously.
Article 26.
Article 26. Article
Mr.
26
Moderator.
is on our page 27.
Moderator.
Yes.
That article should be the last article of the meeting. That's the election article.
Right, Article 26. I'm on page 27 of the handbook. Mr. Bruno?
No.
What?
Mr. Moderator, Article 26 is our election article, and that is normally the last article that we take up at town meeting. Because we don't do it here, it'll be done on Saturday. So my motion, when we get to Article 26, when we've finished all the rest of the business, will be to adjourn this meeting to a time certain, that being Saturday, and then to take up this article. So before that, Clerk has two other articles.
We have two others, sorry. Which one?
11.
Article 11.
All right, we're moving along here. Mr. Moderator.
I am on page 21, Article 11. Yes.
I move that the town of Halifax vote to transfer from the undesignated fund balance the sum of $3,500 to support the South Coastal Counties Legal Services Incorporated's continued free legal service in civil matters to elders, low-income families, and their children.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Seelig, would you like to speak to this?
I would. Again, this is a Troy Guerin article like I referenced before. It's one of the ones that our former selectman was very passionate about, and again, it's an honor to present it. This helps bring free legal service to low-income families. That's a great article, and again, I want to clarify, like the last one I did on Mr. Guerin's behalf, or in his legacy, Halifax residents are eligible for these services. So again, while it's nice to do, the town residents here will seek the benefit of these if they so need it.
Great, thank you, sir. Can I get the recommendation from the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends.
And the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, we recommend.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Open it up for discussion. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll vote on Article 11 as presented. All those in favor, please show your green cards. All those opposed, please the red cards. Article 11 passes unanimous.
Article 17.
Mr. Moderator.
Article 17. Yes. Article 17, as it appears on page 23. Yes.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I move that the town vote to transfer from undesignated fund balance the sum of $96,075 to be added to the general stabilization fund.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I believe the last discussion was, and correct me if I'm wrong, you check with seeing the limit as far as funding and whatnot. We're all good. Right. Okay, we will require a two-thirds vote. Anybody have any questions, comments on Article 17? Seeing none, we'll vote on Article 17 as presented in the handbook. All those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, your red card. Article 17 passes.
Article 26.
Let's go to 26.
Yay,
What do you say?
26. Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I move that we adjourn this town meeting to a time certain, that being Saturday, May 13th at 2023 at 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. to meet at the Halifax Elementary School to take up Article 26, and that the town meeting will be dissolved at the conclusion of that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to this, Mr. Bruno? 'Cause I don't
Well,
know.
that's everybody up for election. We're good.
Okay, seeing no indication. Further discussion, we'll vote on Article 26. All those in favor with the green cards, please. All opposed, the red cards. 26 passes unanimously. Yay. Okay. At this point, I'd like to adjourn the town meeting of Monday, May 8th, 2023. Adjourned.
No, that was